I was asked to share some reflections on peace building currently in Sri Lanka, and I hope these are useful for your own reflections as well. The first thing I want to highlight is that we need to really look at the current context in Sri Lanka. Doing peace building work 2 years ago, 5 years ago, is very different to the context we find ourselves right now. So in order to really be responsive to the challenges and the dynamics of the current situation, we need to really look at what is that we need to do differently to 2 years ago. And I find a different approach, a unique approach that is sensitive to the needs of the current context. In doing this, we also need to look at really the needs of the different communities. If you look at Sri Lanka, maybe the Sinhalese community might be ready to move forward and will be focused on needs for healing the society and being united, and whereas maybe the Tamil community might talk about more the issues of justice and that they are still waiting for. Then you have also another challenge related to extremism that is also part of the dynamics that we observe. So how do you meet these different needs and the needs of different communities and provide multiple approaches in terms of peace building? We also need to understand that the current government, the current political situation, the government is in power with the majority support. And if our peace building work is only addressing the needs of minorities and it does not address the grievances of the majority, we will always be trying to catch up. So it's important that we understand an inclusive approach to find the minorities within this ethnic or religious majority and address the grievances of those communities as well as working to make sure that the minorities are safeguarded and their issues are being addressed and brought to the table. We also need to make sure that we work across the divides, bridging the divides, and it's important to bring communities and groups together. I reflect on the need to bring together former combatants from the different sides of the armed conflict. Families and widows of those who lost their lives are other groups that can be brought together across the divides. Especially thinking of interreligious peace building work, I think it's important that we work more to bring women from religious communities together. And also we need to work more in the formation of religious leaders, ensuring that the formation includes opportunities for young religious leaders to engage with one another and go through transformative experiences from their formation. We also need to acknowledge the importance of intrafaith work in support of interfaith engagements. If we do not support interfaith engagements and critical dialogues, it's difficult to actually move forward with the interfaith peace building work that we want to pursue. There is an importance of also not duplicating existing structures. We tend to want to do the same thing over and over again, but it's important that we map out the existing structures, strengthen those structures rather than replicating and duplicating. For example, there's a coalition of young youth peace organizations called the Youth Peace and Security Coalition. How do we empower that structure where there are 29 organizations coming together? How do we empower those structures and spaces that are shared? How do we create more such spaces where organizations, instead of working in silos, comes together and works more collaboratively across the agenda for promoting peace? This needs also a reflective practice approach, not just carrying out a very project-based approach to peace building, but an approach where we reflect on the approaches we are taking, the challenges we are facing, and we learn from that. I would love to see more reflective practice among the peace building community, maybe even at times going to retreats together to learn from each other's experiences and doing peace building together. Organizations such as yours has a big role in playing a supportive role for enabling those shared spaces. It's also important that we strengthen peace institutions. We have an undergraduate degree in peace and conflict studies in Sri Lanka. We have two universities involved in master's degrees on peace and conflict studies, have Are you working with these? How are you engaging the graduates of these programs? How are we building these peace institutions that bring in long-term capacity for peace building in the country? We are all, with the COVID pandemic situation considered, we are all suffering with the challenges of this current dynamics and the political climate in Sri Lanka. This affects also the peace building community. I think it's important to promote also self-care practices for the peace building community and for yourselves, finding that balance in responding to the challenges that we find ourselves in. And understanding that we are working within a context with authoritarian regimes, it's important to also put in place safeguarding practices to ensure that peace builders, human rights defenders are protected and have the necessary resources to ensure their safety as they pursue this important work. These are 10 different things that I think are very important and things to reflect on as we go on our peace building journey over the next few years. I hope this is useful and that it allows you to also reflect further. Thank you.